Do you feel awkward around people? Has the pandemic exacerbated your social anxiety? Do you tend to overthink every little thing you said in a discussion? If so, you've clicked on the right video. Because today, I'm going to share with you how I tamed my social anxiety and how you can sparkle in any conversation. Let's get started. So first up, I want to talk about the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. These two are always interchangeably used, but they're actually quite different. So self-confidence can be applied to skills, like you become confident at things that you do over and over and over again, and that's how you master them. Like driving. I remember when I first learned how to drive at 15, I was freaking terrified. I was driving like 5 miles per hour in the slowest lane, freaking out. But after just continuously doing it over and over again, I'm just like whizzing up the road. Safely, of course. The same thing can be applied with socializing. It is truly a skill that you can just build upon by just doing it over and over again. Self-esteem, on the other hand, is how you view and perceive yourself. This is like how you treat yourself when you're all alone. And this really explains like how I felt socially. I was completely confident being in social situations, talking to people, but because I had low self-esteem, when I'd go home, I would literally overthink everything I said. I would think, did I overshare? Was I too much? Did I sound stupid? I knew that I had to get to the root of building my self-esteem in order to just have more healthy social interactions. And one huge way that I built my self-esteem is therapy. This leads us to our sponsor. Thank you, Betterhelp, for sponsoring today's video. Betterhelp is a service that assesses your needs and then matches you with your very own licensed professional therapist. They have a huge range of over 20,000 therapists, so they really cover an expansive range of expertise, so you will find a person that will help you go through whatever you're going through. And the beauty of therapy is you can go for any reason you want, whether you want to heal from trauma, get to the root of what's bothering you, venting, to even like unearthing new discoveries about yourself. I have been having the most illuminating discussions with my therapist, Sarah, on Betterhelp. Like, I just love therapy because it's a place just devoted to whatever I want to talk about and what I feel ready to share. Betterhelp is also completely confidential, so everything is safe. Getting started is super simple. You just fill out a questionnaire and you will be matched with a therapist within 48 hours. From there, you will enter a secure video or phone session and exchange unlimited messages with your therapist. But let's say you're not vibing with your therapist. BetterHelp make it really simple and free to change if needed. I am going to leave a link for 10% off your first month. You can go to my link at betterhelp.com/Jen. That's better, H-E-L-P. I will, of course, leave it in the description box, so click it if you are interested. So let's talk about small talk. I would say the majority of people don't like it. I mean, there was a phase in my life where I just detested small talk. I thought it was pointless. I just immediately wanted to get deep. But things have changed. I actually see a beauty and a charm with small talk. I've learned that small talk is pretty much the foreplay of conversation. A lot of the times people need warming up. We really are like onions. I feel like Shrek said it best. Like, we all have layers to ourselves. And small talk is just like peeling the first layer. It's also a vibe check as well. You can kind of suss out whether you are gonna get along with someone, if they're feeling social, if they're feeling more closed off. But I don't love small talk for the entire conversation. Small talk doesn't need to be like for an hour. But I think like 10 to 15 minutes of small talk is like a nice, reasonable amount. I think when you're talking with strangers and acquaintances, you gotta treat them like ovens. Like, you gotta put on the preheat before you stick the entree in. It's not until you've earned their trust, like with a best friend or a friend, where you can just treat them like microwaves, where you can just like open up and like start immediately. This leads us to the next phase, which is to ask questions. I think my go-to small talk questions start off with just a simple, how are you? How is your day? I see each question that I put out kind of as a net, because I'm trying to catch what we have in common. Like, the main objective for me when I enter a conversation is to find something that I have in common with that person. A small talk question that has like the highest success rate for me is, what neighborhood do you live in? Because if I have been to that city or town or state, I will blurt out any observation that I've made about that. So like, a recent example is like, I went to a concert and I met this girl and asked her what neighborhood she lived in. And she said, Rancho Cucamonga. Luckily, I had been there. So I just said, oh, I love Rancho. I love how straightforward the roads are. It's really like a perfect grid system. And she just lit up and was like, oh my God, yeah. Like when I'm driving, it's just a street shot. And that was just immediately my way in on connecting with someone. And the thing is, it could be extremely light. It could be a dim sum restaurant. It could be a park. It could be an arena. It could be a freaking Costco. It could be anything. Another simple one is, what are you drinking? Because if we're drinking the same thing, we can be like, oh my God, you know, like Sauvignon Blanc, tequila, oh my gosh. Like even if it's just water, you can talk about like different brands of water, or if you have a water filter. It's literally just blurting out anything that comes to mind or any information that you know about what they say. This is why I like small talk, because it's really my way of gauging if I vibe with this person or not. And it just allows me to keep things light. So if like it's not really going our way, then I know to not drain my social battery on this person. So when small talk is flowing and you're feeling good, the next objective is to find a topic that sparks enthusiasm in both of y'all. So I actually have like a Rolodex of hot topics that I like to talk about. So I'll naturally kind of like go through them and see like what sticks with that other person. And I swear to God, it's not as like robotic and systematic as I'm laying it out, but it's just something that I subconsciously do. So I like to talk a lot about like feelings. So sometimes I'll just throw out like, hey, like how's your soul been recently? Or what season are you in life right now? Have you picked up any hobbies during lockdown? Have you had any revelations about lockdown? Because you know, COVID is something that we all experienced globally. So that's just one objective thing that we all have in common. And from there, it just really branches out to anything. Like, you know, some people get into fitness, health, science, walking, meditation, spirituality, you know? So I feel like when I ask that question, it opens just a box of potential ways that we can connect. A lot of people think that in order to be interesting, they need to be super smart or funny or whatever narrative they have in their head. But the best way to be interesting is to be interested. Generally, people enjoy talking, even like the biggest introverts, but the key is to make them feel comfortable. And I think the best way to do that is by actively listening. I try my best to really engage with what they're saying. Like if someone is talking to me and sharing something to me, I will just focus on what they're saying. I'm not like playing in my head of like, okay, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna think of that response. Like I've noticed that the best responses come from me just genuinely listening and not putting that pressure on myself to be a certain type of way. I think learning how to be an active listener is a tool that extroverts and introverts should absolutely do. It's just like a life skill. If you haven't read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, that's just like a good blueprint of how to do that. Like when I read that book in 2016, it just transformed the way I move in social situations. And personally, when I found out this tip, it was just like a huge relief for me because it put the pressure off of like me having to like quote unquote perform. Because I truly am like an ambivert. Like I would say I'm 55% introverted and 45% extroverted. So I have no problem when an extrovert wants to take up space and, you know, do their thing. When someone is sharing something with me, I like to ask a question that pries a little deeper about what they just said. So for example, let's say we're talking about revelations you had during lockdown. Let's say this person said,
yeah, the pandemic was crazy. I used that time to really be more introspective.
And then I would be like, oh wow, that's so interesting. Like what activities did you do to be more reflective? Even if it's just a super basic question, it signals to the other person that you're actively interested and curious about their life. Let's say you're blanking and you just have no questions to ask. A trick that I do is I will just kind of summarize what they said in a sentence. So going back to the most recent example, if someone, opened up about their, introspective pandemic period, I would literally just respond, oh wow, it sounds like that was an extremely reflective time for you, period. And maybe I would share revelations that I had during lockdown, So it's really like a two-way street. I think every introvert's nightmare is like the dreaded pause or like the awkward silence. And I just want to point out to you that these pauses feel longer in your head than what's actually happening in reality. I don't trip out when there's like, a little beat in the conversation. And if anything, I kind of see it as a sign of like, okay, like let's switch things up. A quick way to break it is just pointing out something that's in front of you, because that again is a shared experience. It's something that you have in common. So it could be as simple as like, oh my gosh, like, do you see that chair? That's so nice. terrible example. But you know, then you guys could talk about interior design. There's always something to talk about. But let's say you're having a really wobbly day and you're just frozen. I think just being honest and sincere about how you're feeling. I've been in that situation so many times where I just say, oh man, I feel so socially awkward. Like I haven't talked to people in a long time, so forgive me. You know, just kind of like playing it off like that can be really helpful. Even if you just say like, I'm about to have a panic attack, that also disarms that other person. And if that other person is feeling the same way, it completely makes them feel more comfortable knowing that you guys are both feeling nervous. I think this is a good thing to say on a first date. Like if you guys are just both feeling really nervous, just saying, I'm nervous. That kind of helps. It really does, because it shows like the humanness. It's you being vulnerable. And so I think being sincere about how you are and how you feel is the best policy in any conversation that you're in. This leads us to our final tip, which is no one remembers everything you say. They just remember how they feel. This is the perfect advice for all those overthinkers and perfectionists out there. Like, just genuinely no one cares if you stuttered or if there was a pause or if you asked a stupid question. The only thing that's gonna be remembered is the energy and the vibe and the tone. And that's something that is just included in the whole experience of that interaction that you had. So if you make them feel comfortable, that's all that really matters. Like, think about it. After a social event, like how often is it that you feel just so fixated on what someone did? If someone stuttered or if someone, you know, maybe if they said something mean, like maybe they'll stick with you. But then again, like that's not on you. That's on that person. It's so true that everyone is the main character in their own movie. Even if you spent like all night with that person, you're still just a side character. And if you just had a small interaction, then you're a freaking extra. They're probably not gonna remember, but they'll remember like how they felt, you know? And the thing is, even if you make a bad impression or they felt weird around you, if you see them again, it's like a totally new opportunity to try again. There have been so many moments where I was just not feeling my best, but I went out anyway and I probably didn't make a great impression. I actually look forward to when I see those people again because I can redeem myself, you know? So there's always like a silver lining in these types of things. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for today. I feel like we just touched the surface about conversation and socializing and connection. You know, it's so true where like even the most introverted person needs connection, and even the most extroverted person can find ways to connect deeper. So this is truly an evergreen video for anyone, and it's also a topic that just completely fascinates me. Also, I think what would be really fun is if people wrote their favorite like question to ask people. Leave that in the comments down below as well. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and go out there and socialize. You can do it. All right, talk to you later. Bye.